I'm currently at the police station right now because someone stole my dad's identity and is committing fraud. Wait, let's get you caught up. My family recently got hit by identity theft, and it made me realize how little I actually knew about identity theft and also how unprepared I was for it. All the exposure I really had of it was this.
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim. Millions of families suffer every year.
And while I wish this was all just clickbait, unfortunately it's real. So I guess it's time for us to learn about identity theft. Did you know that the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre received over 110,000 reports in 2024? And they identified over 34,000 fraud victims. Some studies estimate that the number is actually much higher because only 5 to 10 fraud incidents are actually reported. Keeping in mind, Canada only has a population of roughly 41 million people. In the US, millions of people are affected annually by identity theft, and some estimates suggest that millions more are affected by broader fraud or identity related issues. Dwight was not exaggerating. Teacher, what exactly is identity theft? Is there somebody on the internet posing as me selling feet pics? Great question, Bobby. Identity theft generally refers to using someone's identifying personal information without their permission, usually for financial gain or to commit a crime. In my family's case, somebody committed fraud using one of our names to open new lines of credit. Basically, somebody do bad things claiming they're you. Alright, back to the story. So several weeks ago, my family stopped receiving mail. Now that happens, right? Mail gets lost sometimes, and who knows what they get up to at the post office. Maybe mail is just a conspiracy made up by big email, but not receiving any mail seems unlikely. Now, not receiving mail might sound kind of benign, but it's actually a potential sign of fraud. And obviously, your resident dumbass, me, was not aware of this. This kind of fraud is called, you guessed it, your mom. Just kidding, it's obviously called mail fraud, and it's actually a very old method of committing identity theft. A long time ago, if you can imagine a time before the internet, people's sensitive personal and financial information mostly traveled through the postal system. Things like bank statements, credit card offers, tax documents, medical bills, checks, and even social security information. And someone could just come along and yoink your mail. Like if you ever watch those movies and the house has like a mailbox right in the front, you could literally just walk by and just grab the mail. Like that's kind of like crazy if you think about it. And obviously that's not just a movie thing, like that exists in real life. In the case of identity theft, criminals would steal checks, credit cards, or personal documents from the mailboxes, or intercepting pre-approved credit cards and activating them fraudulently, or filing false changes of address to reroute your mail. I'm gonna test you, that's gonna come up later, remember. Now hold on, partner. Do not jump the shark quite yet. Not receiving mail for a little bit isn't a guarantee of mail fraud. If you haven't received mail for a little bit, freak the fuck out immediately. Just kidding. There are other reasons why your mail might be missing or delayed. For example, the postal workers could be on strike, which is something that actually happens pretty often in Canada. And of course, that's going to result in some interrupted service. And actually, while I was cooking up this video, Canada Post workers actually did go on strike, and it was kind of like a big thing. The events that transpired in this video happened before the strike, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning just in case people were familiar with the Canada Post strike. Anyways, moving on. If you haven't received mail for a little bit or are missing mail, it is something to be aware of. And if you're worried, one of the things you should do is to check your credit report. What you want to look for are new lines of credit open under your name or any information that doesn't seem right, because that's exactly what happened to my dad. Several new lines of credit have been opened under my dad's name, which he didn't open, and thankfully one of the banks called to check with him. And this is when the possibility of identity theft appeared on my dad's radar. If you find yourself in this situation or you are in this situation, obviously ask the banks to close the accounts for you. And again, check if all your information is correct on your credit report and make sure there's no new lines of credit open, which thankfully my dad did do. What my dad didn't do, however, was tell us about it. Why? I don't know. Maybe he watched too many detective movies and thought he could solve the problem by himself. Like, sir, you are not a police officer, you are not a detective, you were just guy. What you're supposed to do is go to the police and file a report, which my dad also didn't do and had no plans of doing until me and my siblings forced my dad to go file a report. And his reasoning for not wanting to go is because he said we didn't have enough evidence. I don't know what that means though, because someone literally opened new lines of credit under your name. Anyways, eventually my older sister, who is an important business person, wasn't receiving the mail that she was expecting. So she started asking questions we should have all been asking if we knew what was going on, like what is going on with our mail. I, for one, should have actually picked up on this, and this is not a joke. I was expecting Papa John's coupons. There was a gap in Papa John's coupons, and I was wondering where they went, and actually wondered at some point, like, are we missing mail? know, but I just completely brushed it off because I thought it was like an impossibility. Now I know that's not impossible. If you're missing Papa John's coupons, go to the police immediately. And after my older sister started voicing her concerns, my dad reluctantly told us about the situation. And it became pretty apparent that this was, or at least could be, a potential case of identity theft. And we were either already victims or potential future victims. However, super big brain moment, my credit score is too low. You can't open new lines of credit under my name. I win, you lose. Now, me and my siblings were in a bit of a frenzy, so we stayed up late to look up the steps we should take to find out whether or not identity theft had been committed against us, and how to proceed and how to protect ourselves. Since my dad's case would fall under credit fraud, we checked our own credit reports and planned to file a report with the police and the post office. There's more things you should do depending on your situation, so if you find yourself in this situation, please take into account your own circumstances and things that might be relevant to your case. Now, we're gonna go on a bit of a tangent here, but I promise you it is very relevant. And that tangent is that TransUnion sucks. If you don't know, TransUnion is a credit bureau in Canada, and you can use it to check your credit report. And while checking my credit report, no new lines of credit were opened under my name, thankfully. However, what really sussed me out was that one line of information was just a bit off. And that was kind of spooky because, again, one of the signs of identity theft or credit fraud is if your information has been changed. So I quickly followed the instructions to change and fix the information, but they literally would not let me file the dispute. In fact, every single time I would click submit for the dispute, it would just crash the page and it would say that I was blocked. I'm not even joking, it would literally say you were blocked, which is absolutely crazy and like made me even more sussed out. Unfortunately, I didn't record that part because I was just fuming, but hopefully I can recreate it for you guys. And of course, whenever I get annoyed at something so stupid, I look up whether or not people have experienced the same thing. And lo and behold, there are plenty of posts and stories complaining about TransUnion. Apparently, other people had difficulty updating their information as well. And it's also an institution that Canadian banks rely on. I don't know, that's just crazy to me. So if you're in Canada and you need to check your credit report, do not use TransUnion, use Equifax, just to be safe. I did check on Equifax and all my information there was correct, so I assumed that everything was okay. And while I was doing all of this, my older sister filed a report with the post office to figure out the mail situation. Because if you remember what I mentioned before, identity theft via mail fraud can mean somebody filed a change of address request to reroute your mail. So she did some research on mail forwarding and also signed up for notifications to monitor the mail that we were supposed to be receiving, which is actually pretty cool. I didn't know you could do that. And as it turns out, we were supposed to be receiving mail. It just wasn't arriving at our house. Like, the system knows that that mail exists and we just weren't getting it. At the time of recording this video, we still hadn't figured out whether or not somebody had rerouted a mail, but apparently, and don't get any funny ideas, you can do this online without that much effort. I didn't complete the online mail forwarding request because it costs like $100, and I don't got that kind of money to throw around. And obviously, if you do it online, they'll still ask you for some personal information, but in this day and age, I feel like you can fabricate it digitally. But again, I don't know, I'm not a criminal. I'm unfamiliar with the game. We also went to the post office in person to ask one of the workers some questions, and apparently, if you do file for a change of address, the post office should leave you something at your old address to notify you of that change of address. But I hypothesized that that notification can actually be intercepted by the imposter if they were determined enough. And why wouldn't they be determined? They're trying to steal your money. Like, if you think about it, it is a last line of defense, but the imposter could camp outside your house because they know your address and they can wait for the post office to drop off the notification and then they can just intercept the notification, no? It's like stealing packages. Like, I imagine it's not that hard if they really wanted to. Am I saying this is what happened? No. But could it have happened this way? Maybe. I don't know. There might be a lot of holes. Again, I'm not an imposter, so I'm unfamiliar with the game. I will say though, it did make me think about how mail fraud might be a lot easier than I thought it would be. And after a little bit, the post office closed my sister's ticket for the case, claiming that nothing was off, but that sounds kind of half-assed because something was definitely off, and if you can't find out what's going on, that seems kind of weird. Like, it doesn't add up to me. Like, you investigated and found that nothing was out of place, but at the same time, we're just not receiving any mail. While our neighbors were receiving mail, by the way. Like, we checked with the neighbors and they were receiving mail, so like just us doesn't really make sense. But I don't know, I don't work at the post office, so I can't say. After all this, me and my siblings went to our nearby police station and now we're all caught up. So we're gonna file a police report because that's what Google says and that's what ChatGPT says. Obviously, I'm not gonna film when I go inside because I don't know, it's my first time at the police station. But yeah, I'll give an update afterwards after we're done. Spookies. All right, quick re-update follow-up. So me and my siblings called my dad to go into the police precinct because he's the one that needs to make the case. Basically, what happened was kind of what you would have expected. Bunch of clarifying questions about what happened and his line of credit. There was one thing though, when my dad talked to the bank, apparently, like when he asked, the bank wouldn't tell him whether or not somebody actually used up money in the account. I don't know, that's just what he said. So because of that, no money was stolen, so the police have nothing to investigate. So right now my dad just has a case number and a file opened, and if anything else happens, then he has a case he can update. So yeah, right now I guess we're just waiting for the post office to finish their investigation first before we can follow up with the police. That's what the secretary said. Anyways, yeah, information only. All right, so where does that leave us? The police can't help me and my siblings with our concerns because no damages have been done. What are my taxes paying for? Just kidding, I admit that makes sense. There's nothing they can really investigate, but it doesn't make me feel more secure. I also thought that you could just file a police report so that you have something on record in case something does happen and you have proof that you tried to seek help. But apparently you can't file police reports just in case. Although I would argue that missing out on Papa John's coupons is pretty devastating damages. I also took the opportunity to ask the receptionist to help us with the report what I imagined to be some pretty dumb questions, and they gave us some good insight. I asked whether or not being a victim of identity theft makes you more prone to future identity thefts. My train of thought being that if your sensitive information was stolen, right? Like I imagined it floating around out there in like the identity theft circles or something like that, and so it's easier for another imposter to get that information, which makes you an easier target. I don't know if that makes any sense. She answered by calling me a fucking idiot. Just kidding, she was really nice. She said it doesn't really make a difference, and then added that so much of our information is actually already out there and is accessible to people if they really want it. Things like our address, phone numbers, emails, names, etc. are all sold to third parties when we sign up for emails and things like that. Like if you ever sign up for like a mailing list and suddenly you start getting a bunch of spam calls and spam emails, it's pretty much like that. And the reality is there's nothing we can really do about that. What we can do to protect ourselves is to wear digital condoms, which is basically to practice good internet hygiene. I'm looking at you, I know what kind of links you click on. Close the incognito browser, focus on the video. In all seriousness, don't click on any sussy links that you don't trust. Change your passwords every so often and use strong passwords. Password 123 is not a strong password. Don't give out more information than you have to, things like that. As for preventing identity theft via mail fraud, I came up with the genius idea of rigging some mail and then sending yourself that mail. So when the mail gets intercepted and opened by the imposter, they are met with a booby trap. Obviously for legal reasons, this is a joke, but at the same time, if I'm sending myself a package, why can I not gift myself something like, I don't know, 10,000 cockroaches? Again, just kidding, do not mail harmful things. That being said, I still hope the imposters eat. Identity theft sucks. If you have been or are a victim of identity theft, I feel for you. Honestly, we weren't hit with the worst case and I'm very grateful for that. Things could totally be worse. To circle back a little bit, the scene between Dwight and Jim is funny, but the realities of identity theft is actually pretty messed up. I was thinking about it like this, like if somebody steals your car or like your bike, the consequences are pretty clear cut, like the bike is gone or the car is gone and you lose that, and you lose like a certain amount of money. But with identity theft, I feel like once your information is out there or your identity has been stolen, there's this lingering feeling that you're not quite out of the woods and that it might come and bite you in the ass. Like there's a little bit of paranoia that stays, and the damages can be like really crazy. Although I guess the bank could reverse the charges. I don't know how willing the banks would be to do that. I know they do that, but I don't know, there's cases where the banks are like, yeah, tough luck, you're just gonna have to like lose $10,000, $100,000 or something like that. I don't know. The case hasn't been resolved yet. Actually, while making this video, my dad is still receiving calls from like banks to ask him about new lines of credit. If there's more interesting developments in the case, I might do a follow-up video, but maybe I shouldn't put that much out there. But yeah, what a trip. Anyways, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It really helps this very tiny channel. And if you want to see more of me, for whatever reason, please subscribe. And yeah, that's it. Take care. Stay safe.